If you're looking for if you want to sit down with your family and watch a TV show, which didn't used to be too much to ask, but these days you just can't do it. If you're a conservative Christian family, you want to sit down at 8 o'clock on any given weekday night and watch a show, you can't do it. There's nothing for you. There's nothing that appeals to you. And it seems like a lot of times these networks, they put shows out there that intentionally alienate a large portion of their audience, and they must know that they're not going to reap a lot of benefits from that. They're not going to get ratings, but they do it anyway because they care more about the agenda. They care more about undermining the family.
My big question is why? What are some of the reasons that might explain this drop among millennials?
I loved your tweet, by the way. You tweeted recently a Bible verse, and you had some journalists that responded to that. One girl, Jennifer, she tweets,
Rubin.
Either he was hacked or he's totally lost it.
Washington Post.
Well, yeah, those words were written 2,000 years ago, so I doubt very much that they knew this was going to be going on today or yesterday when they were written.
A lot of what's happening, Jeff, is what we call generational replacement. It's a nice way of saying that the older generations, which were very heavily Christian, are passing away, and they're being replaced by younger cohorts that are far more unaffiliated.
Well, I think it is important to put this in the broader cultural context. And what we found over a bunch of studies is that the American culture has become more individualistic. So an individualistic culture places more emphasis on the self and less on social rules.
It's surprising to see the statistics lay it out so clearly.
That's why the fall, again, 68% is a large number, but that drop is something to notice.
Yeah, it certainly is. Cal Doherty from Pew Research Center. Appreciate your time tonight.
But what's really interesting is that the overwhelming majority of us nones aren't necessarily atheists. 2/3 believe in God or a universal spirit.
It's when politics becomes such a part of television programming that the other side is not allowed that I get nervous. And the question is, did that happen to Tim Allen? So he's, of course, the famous actor. He's been around a long time. He had a show called Last Man Standing. And it did well, apparently. It portrayed positively a character who was a conservative Christian.
That ABC, it basically says they can't afford the cost of the cast. What do you say to that?
Well, it's hard for me to buy that because they just gave raises to all 6 of the cast members on Modern Family, which is a very gay-friendly show, the kind of show that ABC is always trying to push on their audience. And so while they give raises to all 6 of the cast members, they can't afford Tim Allen's salary. Although the show is their #2 comedy, their #3 scripted show on the entire network, anchors their Friday nights. It's done well in the ratings. By the way, I'm not trying to be a snowflake and cry because a TV show is canceled like some kind of college student, but it is sort of interesting to see that Hollywood hates conservatives so much that they're willing even to sacrifice money just to make sure that they're not appealing to an audience that they really feel to be basically subhuman, it seems.
Asked you about a separate Pew study that I saw slightly earlier, but it suggests that this U.S. path differs from the rest of the world.
And the problem really comes down to this. I find that there are people today that read what they believe instead of believe what they read. Are you following me? When they read the Word, they read it through their tainted glasses of what their denomination has taught them or what the precepts of men have stated, instead of just simply believing what they read. Look at 2 Timothy chapter 4. Look at verse 3. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but according to their own desires. Everybody say own desires. Because they have itching ears, they will heap up for themselves teachers, and they will turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to fables. And the word fables means a speech, invention, or a falsehood, or a myth.
And Tim Allen came out and said that he was blindsided and stunned by this cancellation of what would be the 7th season of this show. I mean, they're not doing a lot to make it seem like it wasn't political.
It's shocking. It's disgusting that ABC canceled this show, but I mean, I guess it's not really surprising considering that ABC's entire lineup of shows right now just mocks conservative values in every single episode.
But a new survey shows a significant drop in the number of Americans who identify as Christian.
At another level, it's not surprising at all. It's exactly what we all look around and see when we walk down the streets of New York, or I'm from Oklahoma when I walk through the fields of the small town I grew up in. It's the reality of the U.S. we live in today.
The media have been reticent to call persecution against Christians in the Middle East genocide. Do you have any thoughts on why that is?
I do. It's been very disheartening in many ways. When you look at the Pew Research, obviously nonpartisan research that's out there, and they look at worldwide what's happening with persecution of different religious groups, the Christian groups are the most persecuted groups around the world.
Sadid and Mr. Alad intended their film to put a spotlight on the Christian crisis and get the world to pay attention.
This, of course, is nothing in comparison to the persecution of Christians in the Middle East, and what they have been facing for a very long time. It is a problem we in the West are only just waking up to now.
Iraqi Christians who have lived there for 2 millennia are currently on the verge of extinction. The mainstream media, a weapon of mass deception, itself acts as global persecutor, responsible for downplaying and failing to adequately report upon Christian persecution, thus allowing for the expansion of extremism.
These gentlemen just rang the bell as an affirmation of the return of Christianity to this community.
Prompted a New York school teacher to abandon her classroom and go to the battlefield. She believes strongly that the tortures inflicted upon Christians in Syria and Iraq are too often ignored.
These guys that we're with today were part of the forces that drove ISIS out of this community. Once a beautiful community of 50,000 Christians. Now, buildings like this church are destroyed. Many of the homes are destroyed.
These were some of the barbaric methods used to persecute religious minorities in the Middle East. And no, I am not referring to world history. Sadly, this is our nightly news.
And people in America have to be more aware of this and have compassion for our brothers and sisters here. We're living in historic times.
How can persecution occur on this scale and not cause a global uproar? How can the cries of martyrs not echo from one corner of the earth to the other? When I see Christians crucified side by side for believing that Jesus Christ had been crucified for them in just such a manner, I demand an end. I appeal to the conscience of the international community to act now to save humanity.
We know it's a dangerous moment in history. I also had, the second I heard it was Times Square.
That Rojas said he wanted to die, that he heard voices, and that he did it for God.
He smoked something that they believe might have been synthetic marijuana before the incident, and that he thought the world was coming to an end.
Even this past Sunday, we woke up, we saw our news feeds, and we saw that two Coptic Christian churches were the target of ISIS bombings, where a widow of this one named Nassim Fahim was one of the men killed on Palm Sunday in one of these bombings. He's a Christian, and there's this video of his wife his wife sharing about the message of forgiveness. This Egyptian journalist, I would say, I don't know too much about him, but I did some research, and he's maybe like the Larry King of Egypt. He's the top journalist and talk show host. His name is Amir Adib. He's not a Christian, but I want you to see his response.
أنا فرحانة بيه ومبسوطة ومش زعلانة من اللي عمل كده، بقول له ربنا يسامحك، أنت مغيب يا ابني، أنت يفكروا صدقيني. ما لهمش حاجة، لهم فكروا تاني، فكروا إن أنتوا بتعملوه ده صح ولا غلط، وربنا يسامحكم وإحنا مسامحين.
Jesus is calling. Have you come to the
أقباط مصر مصنوعين من فولاذ. أقباط مصر بيتحملوا كوارث ومصايب كتير. القبط المصري يعشق تراب القبط المصري يتحمل كل شيء عشان وطنه. وايه كمية التسامح اللي عندكم دي؟ لو اعدائكم يعرفوا قد ايه انتم متسامحين بجد ما كانش حد يصدق. ده انا لو ابويا والله ما اقول كده ابدا. الناس دي عندها كمية تسامح عن حق، عن عقيدة. دول بني ادمين والله مصنوعين من مادة تانية. الله يرحمه بطل وشهيد ومثل اعلى للي قاعد كل واحد.
These Christians are made of steel. They are made of a different substance. There's something different about the gospel that we have. There's something different about what the Holy Spirit has done in our hearts. There's something different about this inerrant word that we hold to and we believe in.